You're listening to Somewhat Frank with me, Frank Gruber. After working in the corporate world for a decade, I decided to blaze my own path by co-founding Tech Cocktail, which helped catalyze local startup communities and eventually turned into TechCo Media, a site which grew to millions of readers and was eventually acquired. Over the past decade, I've interviewed hundreds of entrepreneurs and thought leaders from some of the fastest growing and most successful companies in history. And along the way, I've learned amazing lessons from my experiences. So we're going to talk about startups, tech, innovation, and their intersection with personal life, and anything else on Frank Gruber's mind. So let's get started being Somewhat Frank. Somewhat Frank is produced with the help of Established, my new company.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this Somewhat Frank podcast. I'm your host, Frank Gruber, and today I'm joined by my longtime friend, colleague, and fellow nature lover, also a space enthusiast, Johnny Good Times Guidos. How are you doing, Johnny? Welcome.
I'm doing well, Frank. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Me too. You settling in okay in October? You feeling okay with everything?
Oh, I love it. I'll tell you, as soon as I'm done with work for the day, I jump in the truck and go for a ride out in the country because it's just my favorite time of year. But I think everybody's annoyed with me saying that at this point.
Well, I love anything related to pumpkins, and it seems that this is the time that they come out and come into the form of a pumpkin pie or a pumpkin bread or a loaf or anything pumpkin related, and that makes me happy. And it also makes me kind of think about the earth more, as it's the harvest season. You start thinking about nature, and then the leaves are changing and the weather's getting a little bit more crisp. And I don't know, something makes me think a little bit more about nature and what's going on. And I guess because we're speeding towards winter, and obviously we're gonna have a winter here. In some places it's not as cool, but where everyone kind of hunkers down.
For sure. And on that note, this is the first year ever that I actually grew my own pumpkin, so I'm pretty excited about that. Yep.
That's amazing. How long did that take?
Good question. A couple months. I don't know. I bought a bunch of seeds, dumped them in the ground, and then, I got some cucumbers this year, some corn, pumpkins, lettuce. They all just kind of randomly, jumped, grew. So I can't give you a timing format, but there's something to be said about getting back to, like you said, nature and doing a little bit of farming. And, I've been involved in the tech space like you have for so long. I really wanted to do something tangible with my hands. And so working out in the garden or on the farm has been a lot of fun.
So you basically have turned yourself into a little farmer there.
I have. I'm an urban farmer, I think is what you call it.
An urban farmer is the term. Well, it's kind of interesting because that's one thing I wanted to talk about today is actually farming. There's a new documentary came out about a week or two ago called Kiss the Ground. It's out on Netflix. If you have a chance, give it a watch. It really makes you think about agriculture and farming. And I grew up in the Midwest and cornfields for miles, so I totally feel and understand that ecosystem and what's been going on there for a while. But it's interesting because it does a deep dive into kind of the history of farming and like where it started and why it started and how we got into this, setup where we're actually, really have almost industrialized the market and turned it into just a machine. And in doing so, they basically explain that it's actually hurt our earth a lot, because they're really just it turns out the earth itself is almost like a big sponge for carbon emissions, and the plants that are on it can do that. But if you take all the plants and nutrients out of the earth, boom, how are you going to get them back into the earth to kind of recycle that air and get it cleaned out? So really interesting, has a really interesting perspective on regenerative agriculture and how it can, balance the climate and basically replenish the earth for the world. So
yeah,
stuff.
I watched a little bit of it. Woody Harrelson, surprisingly, because I don't think about this very often, he has a really nice voice because he did the narration of the of the movie. And just from my experience, over the past year or so of doing a little bit of gardening or farming, it blows my mind. And I think that when we're younger, we're exposed to a little bit more, or at least myself I was exposed to that a little bit more. And then you get away from it and we're spending 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, whatever, staring at computers. But then when you get out there and you get your hands dirty, you actually get into get into nature. It's very therapeutic, number one. And then number two, it's really surprising. And I know I'm going to sound like an idiot saying this already, so let me preface it with that. But it's surprising that like a 1 millimeter little seed, you can plant it in the dirt, and this is kind of hammered home in the movie. And I grew a 10-foot tall sunflower, right? I mean, it's huge, it's blooming. You can yield a lot of food from some of these things, and it all starts with just water, soil, and literally a 1 millimeter seed. So it's amazing. Interesting, right?
Nature is really amazing, and I think the interesting thing there is, especially in the Midwest. I just remember, miles and miles of tilled fields, and I thought, that's the way you farm. But apparently, for quite some time in the country, across the country, and I'm sure this is probably highly, this is a point of debate, if you will, but. Maybe we've been doing farming wrong for quite some time, because it's been just learned over and over, passed on from generation to generation. And the film really highlights the fact that there's actually people out there trying to teach these farmers all around the country that there's a way to use the soil in a better way, to regenerate the soil with no-till farming, which I didn't even know anything about. And it's more or less, creating the ability for, rather than leaving empty fields with dirt, which basically create deserts, right? You're actually jumping in and creating other crops, and almost like, similar like why you have grass, right? If you end up taking away all your grass or whatever and putting just dirt, what's going to happen? It's going to be muddy. It's going to flood. It's going to cause, other issues, going to erode. It's going to get, all these different things. And so the same thing happens with these fields that are all, covering the country. And, and then on top of it, you're stripping, when you're putting all the pesticides in to kill the whatever, you're also stripping it of the nutrients, and all that stuff ends up in our drinking water, which we then consume, and it causes other problems. So there's this whole ecosystem here that's been disrupted for quite some time. And I just feel like that film really is powerful, and hopefully some people see it. And upon completion of watching it, I was, it made me want to plant some things as well. I did buy some plants this year or some seeds as well. I didn't get a chance to go out there and do it this year, but I'm hoping I can next year. But I want to create some, some fruit trees, and do some things. Like Jason Mraz is actually in the film too. I don't know if you got to that part, but he's got a huge farm that does avocados and other things. And, it's just interesting. Everyone's out, everyone's got an opportunity to create their own food, and I love to do that here around our house here, and make it our little farm of fruit around our yard, basically.
Sure. And I think that given the recent pandemic and everything that's going on in the world, there's something to be said about being self-sustaining, right? So if you have as little as, I wish I had some of these statistics in front of me, but if you have something like a quarter of an acre, right, you can produce enough food to feed your family for a year or something like that. Again, don't quote me on that, but I'm trying to drive the point home of self-sustainable living is kind of top of mind for me anyways these days. So.
Right. And I guess it drives home, I'd love to I'm kind of envious. You got that farm opportunity out there in Indiana, and I'm, here in Maine. I probably should have bought more acreage, but maybe I'd love to get some of those fruits. I'd love to get some animals. I love alpacas and llamas, as you know, and have liked those for quite some time, at least 15, 20 years. I visited a farm up in Wisconsin years ago and wrote all about it on my, and then the blog, just a blog, Somewhat Frank. And if you want to go search that article, we can link it up. But more or less, I was interested in llamas and the actual farming of them. And, and as that led to me connecting with people like Tony Shea, who's now, old friend. And he was an investor in our last company. And he had an alpaca that lived across the street from us in downtown Las Vegas. So my whole point here is that I don't have a ton of acreage, but maybe, just maybe, I could get some llamas and maybe some chickens and just have the whole ecosystem here.
I think I support your decision, Frank. I always support your ideas.
Now the limiting factor there is just time.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, like I said, it's a lot of fun. And if you actually put a little bit of, not you specifically, but our listeners put a little bit of research into it, you can find little scraps of land here and there that really aren't price prohibited. So you can get out there and do it.
Totally. And the one, I eat a lot of eggs, right? I'd love to have eggs from my own chickens. I know friends that live in the city. I have a friend down in St. Louis. I'll call him out, Justin Thorpe. He's got chickens, and it's pretty fun to be watching him online share the updates from there. I know other friends that even in Las Vegas had chickens, and so I think we get our chickens from a chicken lady down the street. But
is that her name, Chicken Lady?
No, I don't know.
Hey, Chicken Lady.
Yeah, but either way, So anyway, we'd love not to put her out of business or anything like that. I think she does fine work, but I wanted to maybe have her own chickens as well.
Well,
but my little one's been asking a lot for a bunny. So I don't know anything about bunnies, but and I don't think they lay eggs the same way. So we're gonna have
Cadbury bunnies do, I think, at Easter time.
That's true. We'll have to do some more research on that. All right, so let's get into it.
Well, Frank, as you always like to do, I know you want to celebrate people in your own network. So what do you got going on today?
Celebration is a big part of everything, right? Like, so it's important for when you're running a company, when you're inside a company, creating those milestones and having something just a little further along to look forward to. And that's part of it. And then obviously I just like when you have wins and things that are exciting, I like to showcase them. It's been something I've been doing for quite a while, internally, externally. So I want to share some updates about a couple people in my network. Lolita Taub and Jesse Middleton have teamed up. So Jesse Middleton's a venture capitalist at Flybridge, and he and Lolita teamed up to launch this new fund. It's a $5 million fund investing in early stage community focused and powered startups called the Community Fund. And so that was some exciting news. They're looking to get some interesting companies in there, and they've added some other venture partners as well. So that's kind of a new thing. Ben Metcalf, who I've known for a while from the West Coast, and when he used to have startups as well, he started a fund and he has made his first investment. So he's investing in seed round companies that are B2B startups building significant technical moats to real world challenges. So that's kind of their MO, and it's called Monochrome Capital. So check that out if you're a B2B startup building significant technical moats to real world challenges. Also, Benoit Wirz, I call him Ben. I don't know, he goes by both, but he's got Brighteye VC, and they're out in the UK. They just raised another round, $54 million for their second fund. It's a thesis-driven fund investing in startups and enhancing learning. So if you fit that criteria as a startup and looking for funding out there on the other side of the pond, I guess, check that out. We've got JD Vance, who is an investor. He's a VC. He was part of Revolution/Rise or Rest, and then just launched his new fund called Naria last year. It's a thesis-driven early-stage venture fund. He actually is an author too. He wrote a book called Hillbilly Elegy, and it was a bestseller. And it came out in like 2015, 2016, somewhere around there. Gives his life story growing up in rural Ohio, and some struggles that his mother had with some addiction, and basically it's turning into a movie produced by Netflix, created by Netflix Films, and it's also it's going to it's going to tell his life story. It's pretty interesting. It's coming out November 24th, and it stars some great people. It's produced by or directed by Ron Howard. It's got some familiar faces in there as well that will be playing different roles. So can't wait to see that on the big screen. Congrats to him on all his successes and with the new fund. Andrew Song, he was with Facebook before. Now he's got a startup they've been working on a little bit in quiet, ironically, and it's actually called Whisper. So I guess that is ironic. And it's developing a new kind of hearing aid, and they just raised more funds for that. And then my brother-in-law, Mike Levins, he launched a startup in the insurance tech space called Counterpart. You can check that out. It's an online program, but basically they're doing some interesting stuff on the business liability side, so management liability insurance for the workplace. So if you're interested in that or it sounds interesting, go check it out. Congrats to Mike. I'm super proud of what he's been up to and been working on for the last about 10 months now. So yeah, so anybody that's out there raising rounds, I try to help companies. We do that at Establish and Startup of the Year, but we through our Startup of the Year program. But also, if you're out there raising rounds and you're trying to connect with people and hitting a wall, I'd love to help. If there's some way I can help, I've got a pretty solid network of investors and folks that might be able to help you. So if it's not a fit for our own Established Ventures Fund or Next Gen Venture Partners Fund, which I'm a venture partner in, I'm happy to route it to the right place and play a little bit of point guard there. So let me know, and just depends.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. You're a connector for sure. And then additionally, we're doing some really great stuff with Established Ventures. We've raised in 2 SPVs at this point. One of those we've fully invested in portfolio companies. The second, we're still looking for some good companies to invest in. I know that we're going to be vetting some great companies in our upcoming Startup of the Year Summit here in a month or so.
Exciting stuff. And we've got, I've been busy. I mean, it's been busy this last month or so we've got our Startup of the Year program, which is that year-long program coming to a conclusion and a rebirth, because every time it concludes, it starts over. And it's coming to a conclusion at our big culmination event, the Startup of the Year Summit, which is November 16th through 18th. It'll be a free online event. So anybody listening wants to check it out, you can go register now at summit.startupofyear.com. But it's more than just the startups. We've got 100 companies competing in a Shark Tank style competition. It's going to be streamed online, so you can watch pitches if you like watching startup pitches. And there'll be some great judges, groups of judges that'll be part of those pitches and giving feedback. Just like Shark Tank kind of programming. But then there's also a bunch of speakers and thought leaders that are going to be sharing their knowledge. People like Tim Draper, who's a venture capitalist and founder of Draper Associates and Draper University, and he's also an author of a book called Startup Heroes. You've got entrepreneur and author Kara Golden, who's have you ever had Hint Water, John?
Oh yeah, I sure have. It's delicious.
Yeah, so she's the founder of Hint Water, and she's got a new book out called Undaunted, which is coming out October 20th. So what is that, like right around the corner here? So check that book out, Undaunted. It's her story and kind of the ins and outs of how she was an accidental entrepreneur. So pretty cool stuff. Entrepreneur Mike Evans is going to share his candid story about starting Grubhub, and from taking it from literally building the first product as the developer to IPOing it, and then moving on to his next company, which is now called Fixer.com, which is basically creating an ability for you to get a handy person to your house to fix things. And then he's got a book called Hangry coming out soon, all about his journey. And we've got some other folks like author and entrepreneur Rohit Bhargava, who's got the Non-Obvious Megatrends book out. Meredith Feynman, who's going to teach you tips about how to brag better. That's the name of her new book, Brag Better, which everyone can do a little bit better job bragging in the right way, right?
Sure. And
then also some others like Whitney Johnson, who's going to teach us how to disrupt ourselves. Her latest book is called Disrupt Yourself. And so if you're interested in any of that, what I just mentioned, register now. It's a summit.startupofyear.com. It's free. You're going to want to mark your calendar November 16th through 18th. Should be a great 3 days.
I'm pumped up about it. It's going to be a lot of good content, a lot of good panels, AMAs, the pitch competition, I'm sure is going to be amazing as always. A lot of good companies there. So I'm pumped. I'm really excited.
Yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun to get those. I've been looking at a lot of companies. Where I started with that, where I ended up was totally different places. What I wanted to say was that we've had to vet 1,000 companies down to 100, which is really freaking hard. Like some amazing people out there doing some amazing things. So that's really fires me up about the world. Like there's people are just so smart and they're tackling these problems that are going to change the world. So we're going to see a bunch of those companies competing, and I'm excited to have them involved, and obviously everyone come together.
Oh yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be a lot of fun too. Some quirkiness, maybe some let's say guest appearances.
I want to see llamas. You know that. I want to see some llamas.
Frank loves llamas. I'm sure llamas will be there. So everybody's pretty excited about it. A lot of work leading up to it, but
yes,
we're going to put on
about 30-something days out. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Well, good. So Frank, what you been reading anything lately or watching anything that's kind of struck your interest?
Yeah, well, we talked a little bit about what I've been watching. That Kiss the Ground was what I've been watching mostly. Been busy, so I haven't been watching that much. But a lot of reading, prepping for a lot of these interviews. I'm doing a lot of the interviews at the summit. So all the people I mentioned a moment ago all have books. So I've literally been speed reading their books, trying to get prepared for interviews for them, which is a lot of reading. I think there's about 9 of them. So 9 new books I've read in like the last month, which is pretty fast pace of reading for me anyway.
How many are you going to read this weekend?
2.
So good luck.
Yeah, thank you. But I want to be, well prepared for the interviews, and it helps a lot with the backstory and whatnot. So I love doing it. So, all right, next up, reading wise, there's been a lot of people out there feeling lonely with the pandemic, and there's new AI systems that have been developed to predict loneliness through natural speech patterns. So pretty interesting article I shared that shares kind of the insights of that, and how maybe it can be used for good.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I sit here working all day by myself, and I'm a little down at some point throughout the day.
Right. So yeah, so that's definitely interesting. I think there's things we can do to connect with people online. Um, and I think one of the articles I also shared was an interesting op-ed by a podcaster and also a news reporter that she's part of Cheddar, and she's been on TV for years. And her name's Jill Wagner, and she's got a book about, or sorry, an op-ed about working moms and how she's just hit her breaking point. She's got a podcast called Need to Know that's an everyday podcast for Cheddar, and she's also on the Cheddar news network. And she kind of on one of her podcasts recently, just basically out of nowhere, just was like kind of explained to her co-host, like, I'm at a breaking point, man. Some days, like, I don't even know if I should go to work. I'm feeling like I should quit because I got to take care of my child and try to work. And so anyway, there's that juggle. And as I'm saying that, my little one tries to sneak in, and we're recording right now, and I've kind of had to, like, just roll with it. So there's a lot more of that happening right now. And I think everyone's kind of in the same boat. And I think it's a really, interesting article and powerful. And I think everyone needs to realize it, that people are trying to get through this. And even if you have, like, here's an example. We send a child to school. If they get a sniffle right now, which is a cold, it's the changing seasons, there's allergies, whatever, they get sent home and quarantined for 14 days. So what do you do as a parent that's working from home now that you've got a child also quarantined with you for 14 days and you're trying to work? Like, that's a juggle, and that struggle is real. Like, it's happening everywhere. So wear a mask, wash your hands, do all you need to do. Don't take a day for granted, because people, like smart people like Bill Gates, are saying that the fall is going to be worse than the summer was, and we're already seeing it. Like, we're seeing a third spike, and I don't want this whole program to be about COVID, because I know we talk about it a lot on a lot of podcasts, but it is a little bit overwhelming with what's going on in the world. So I wanted to address it and make sure everyone kind of remembers that we're not through the woods yet.
Nope. And I know that there's a spike in Indiana right now, and it's weird that we're actually on the travel advisory list for Ohio and Illinois. Those are the kind of the areas that I was thinking I didn't want to go mess around with. And now
you're the hot spot.
Apparently,
the tables have turned. How did that happen so quickly? Speaking of tables turned, Canada still is not letting Americans into their country because of COVID. So we got to get our act together if we want to go to Canada anytime soon. It's heating up across the country and world, in Europe as well, and France is already putting in they're putting in those curfews again that they had back in early on. And so it's kind of crazy times.
Wear your mask.
One positive silver lining, I guess, if you want to call it that, is movie theaters right now. AMC is currently renting out their theaters for $99, so you can do a buyout of a theater and go watch a movie, which I was jokingly calling it a silver lining, because that just basically means that we're in a really tough situation. And the theater industry in general is probably quite stressed by this pandemic, because they're literally giving it away for almost free so that you can just go see a movie to make $99 in an hour and a half to 3 hours. Like, how is that even close to breaking even?
That's wild. I had not heard that. That's pretty interesting and kind of tempting, to be honest with you, right? I mean,
yeah. I saw a friend of mine saw that article, or it was a Wall Street Journal article, and I guess it's happening everywhere at AMC theaters. A friend of mine took her team as a retreat. She's got a small team, and so they all just spread out, and just went to the theater, so quite a good idea. But the funniest part about it is I don't know any movies I'd actually want to see right now.
Good point. I don't even know what's out there, because I know a lot of studios have been releasing straight to streaming services, or you can rent them online and do it from the comfort of your home. So,
right. I mean, they're going directly to Netflix, or they're going directly, like Disney Plus. I think they just announced they're doubling down on like their online, streaming opportunities. They're going to go direct, and so theaters are at risk. I could see maybe even, like, could you imagine if like Disney or like Netflix or Amazon or Apple just gobbled up all the AMCs? And then that's where they go once this all kind of settles. Like, they just bought all this like amazing real estate for nothing, and like now own the entire chain. Like the whole, they make the movies, they produce them, they put them out. Now you go get the popcorn, they own the popcorn. I mean, they're already kind of do, because I'm ordering it from Amazon anyway, but you know what I mean?
Right. Not a bad idea. And then Amazon could also use it as distribution centers as well. So if the movies don't work out,
lots of purposes for that, for sure. All right, let's switch gears here. You want to talk about Earth or space?
Space.
We've
been talking about Earth a lot today, so let's talk about space.
Okay, talk about space. Let's see. So space-wise, we've got, there's this new report out that satellites could basically soon map every every tree on Earth. So I guess this is a little bit of space and Earth. So that's pretty cool if you could see every single plant on the Earth, basically every tree. All right, so I kind of tricked you there. That last article was about satellites and Earth and space at the same time. So let's move on to just one about space that has to do with satellites. And I love satellites because they give us information, but they also create space junk. And so apparently we're not only polluting the Earth, we're also polluting space. And for somehow there's already so much debris in space that it's a problem. Like it's actually a problem. And 95% of space debris detected in a new survey is unknown objects. So that's crazy. What's up there? Like, what are we putting in? How is it getting there? And what is it? Like, that's crazy.
That's somewhat concerning, right? And I think at some point, we collectively as a world, if possible, need to come together and put together some sort of regulations for that, because I'm assuming that can't be good, right? If you get trash in our, whatever you want to call it.
Well, it can't be good because here's what can happen. And I just heard it in a different report today that we almost last night had a near collision of two, I guess it was satellites from different countries. And what that could potentially have done is then created a reaction, which then created all of this space debris to get into our lower orbit, which is kind of a problem. So yeah, we've kind of got an issue. Why, so now I'm thinking like my little idea light bulb goes off. It's like, is there a space trash company out there? Is it that we should be thinking about creating? Like, who's picking up the trash?
It's nuts. As we're talking here, I'm just making a list of things I need to be worried about today. So thank you for that.
No, I was just thinking about the opportunity. Like,
it's a good opportunity.
Is it an Elon Musk company, or does somebody else have? Is that what some of these companies are going to be doing? Is literally going out and cleaning up the space garbage? Like, sounds like a theme of a sci-fi movie, right?
Sure does. Oh my goodness, and I'm sure Elon Musk, it's probably on his list as well.
Right. Or Jeff Bezos, who knows? He's got that Blue Origin as well. So hopefully somebody's thinking about it. If you're listening, it's an idea. You can go start that. There's a lot more opportunity now in space. All right. So also, let's see, switch gears. You told me yesterday you went to Starbucks. I haven't been to a Starbucks in months. And you don't want to get distracted by what you told me about Starbucks, but long story short, they're hiring now, and they're actually, here's a little bit of trend spotting here. Diversity is now being rewarded at Starbucks when they're hiring. So Starbucks is going to be tying their executive pay to their 2025 diversity targets. So that's pretty cool and interesting, especially in the times we live in. And, it's not a level playing field for everyone when it comes to hiring.
It's very interesting. I'm glad to see that they're such a big organization that they can actually make a pretty big impact with some of those things, underrepresented communities. So.
It reminded me of the company that won Startup of the Year a while back, Blendor, which we interviewed Stephanie Lampkin recently about on the Startup of the Year podcast. And she's basically helping organizations find employees by, basically creating these creating the ability for people not to be biased, right? So her technology allows that non-biased opportunity for people. So pretty cool. Definitely see that as a trend and one to keep an eye on. So let's talk about Earth real quick, and then we'll wrap it up because I know we've been talking quite a bit. Let's talk about, there is a positive story about clean energy. There's a compact nuclear fusion reaction that's very likely to work. Very likely to work. I don't know, doesn't sound very likely to me, but apparently that's a good thing in space lingo, or sorry, science lingo. Very likely to work, a study suggests. So what that means is there's this new compact nuclear fusion reaction thing that they are doing that could produce a ton of energy and be clean. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I know that talk about science fiction. I know they've been talking about that for years. I think that's been the plot line of a lot of movies I remember from back in the 80s and 90s. But if it works out, I mean, yeah, it's very likely to work. That's a good sign.
Yeah. And then one other article that I don't know if I shared with you or not, but kind of that same lines. People are kind of moving towards this kind of cleaner energy focus. Airbus unveiled a hydrogen designed zero emission flight. So Airbus is making airplanes soon that will be zero emission, which is pretty cool. It's kind of going that direction. And I think it's pretty cool. And so the other one is that the Arctic hasn't been this warm for 3 million years. So sorry to end on a negative note, but everyone's just got to stay cool out there, right? Like, just keep it cool.
It sounds like a good plan to me. But, I guess it's not surprising. We've been kind of trending in that direction for a while. But, Frank, to your point, if everybody goes out there and plants a garden, maybe we can bring it back a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, if people do that no-till approach, kind of looping it back to that first kind of discussion about the kiss the ground, maybe there's a way that we can reverse this change and do something in a positive way and to help the earth. And yeah, the only other one that I didn't share with you was that this article I read recently is like that we're 50% chance that we're living in a simulation. So I don't know if you've ever followed this whole simulation theory, that we are literally living in a simulation.
Sure.
Well, there's a 50-50 chance that we are. So
how's that possible?
Makes me my head want to explode. But yeah, it's 50-50. We could be real. We could be in a simulation. Not really sure. So don't want to push anybody that's on the edge there, but kind of interesting stuff as we're living in this weird 2020.
Oh, yes, we are. Well, good. Do you want to talk about our other podcast, Startup of the Year? We've kind of been doing.
We've been busy, man. We've been producing a lot of podcasts. One of our most recent ones, I mentioned Stephanie Lampkin, that was recent, but the most recent one was with Polly Rodriguez from Unbound, which she was a Startup of the Year contestant and runner-up a couple years back, and she shared her roller coaster ride of bootstrapping her sexual wellness startup to success. And so basically, sexual wellness is not an area that a lot of investors flock to when they're thinking about investing. It could be put in that whole like vice kind of category sometimes, and so she had a hard time finding investors that would support what she was doing. But she has an amazing story. She's got an amazing team, and obviously has weathered the storm to get through what she's in, where she's at now. And you can listen to the podcast to hear the whole thing. But getting a chance, also you can check out Unbound online and learn more about what she's up to.
Sure. And if anybody out there wants to go ahead and take a listen to that and other amazing interviews, you can find it at podcast.startupofyear.com. Go ahead and subscribe if you'd like, and leave us a comment or two. So
yeah, we'd love to hear the feedback. And same with this podcast. If you're listening, we want to hear your stories, hear your reviews. Like if you have questions, put them out there on the whatever platform you're sharing or listening to this on, Apple or whatever. And love to get your feedback. Speaking of podcasting, there's a new app that just launched this week. It's called Shuffle App. If you get a chance, check it out. It's like Instagram for podcasts. It's one thing I've been testing. It allows you to like create these 60-second like clips of your favorite podcasts. It's a listening app, but it also lets you kind of create these clips and then share them with the rest of the community. And it's an interesting new tool. It might be helpful in being able to kind of surface some of the best points from podcast and share it with your friends.
Oh, I've checked it out and been playing with it a little bit. It's very interesting, and that podcast space, as we all know, is ripe for a lot of different things. And getting the word out there, and I guess publishing or exposing people to things that they may like out there in the podcast world seems to be a great opportunity. And Shuffle App is doing some good stuff.
All right, Johnny. So with that, I've got one more final note I wanted to share with everyone. I'm sure you've already know this. If you're listening, you probably already have done this. But if you haven't had a chance, definitely go out and register to vote. Get out there and vote if you are registered. We've got a major election coming up November 3rd. So, just right around the corner. It's going to make make some major change in the country potentially. And so go out and vote. Interesting fact. I moved about a year ago from Las Vegas, and so I don't know if you know this, but you have to register by state, right? So I'm already registered and ready to go in Maine, but in Nevada, I was still registered. So they still in Nevada were going to send like a ballot to my old address. So I had to go online and cancel that. So interesting for anybody moving around, especially because of the pandemic or whatever. Go out and cancel your old one, get the new one, be ready to go. If you're not already, because what I was worried about was somebody taking my ballot and voting for me in 2 states. So I'd have 2 ballots or something. So something to think about. I didn't even think about it until recently. So anyway, point of my matter is no matter what, wherever you are, register and get out there and vote. All right. So this is I think we had some great stuff today, Johnny. Thanks for joining Somewhat Frank podcast. For all those listeners out there, thanks for being a part of it. Please drop us a line, like I said, on the reviews, and we'll be back soon with more updates. Thanks so much.
Well, that's a wrap. Thanks so much for listening. This is Somewhat Frank, signing off. Frank Gruber. Oh, and don't forget, subscribe online, iTunes, SoundCloud, Android, wherever you can find it. Somewhat Frank podcast. We'll be back soon with another episode. Thanks so much.